Yep, nothing in there. This is the Lewis-Thornburg House located in the Uwharrie National Forest. Online it says this house was built around 1855 by the Lewis family. That date appears to be estimated though because the Lewis family doesn't show up in the census until a bit later, around 1870. It was purchased by the Thornburgs in the 1940s, and they did extensive renovation. I noticed a video online of somebody who'd been in the house recently looking for ghosts. They had a spirit box sitting up on the mantle here in this room. I'm not sure if they actually came across any ghosts. It is a little bit of a creepy place. It does give off a bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre farmhouse vibe, I guess. But after doing some research on the families, I'm pretty sure there's A, no ghosts, and B, no serial killers sitting in the back room. The scariest thing about this house is probably the asbestos shingles. I think this rooster actually owns the place. The plastic bag on the ground is a modern addition. The cabinets that you see here in the kitchen are knotty pine. There's also a root cellar beneath the kitchen that was installed by the Thornburgs after 1945. I don't know why I didn't go on the back deck. I guess I walked right by it. There's actually a really nice view of the property from the dining room. I can only imagine how many biscuits and gravy and coffee was consumed in this room. The shelves most likely held decorative plates, which at the time was a pretty popular thing to do. I'm also wondering, along the walls in this house, I've noticed quite a bit of what looks like soot, sort of dark, dirty, dingy coloration on the panels. It would be interesting to know if that's actually soot that would come from the wood stoves or if that's just time. The Thornburgs lived in this house up until 1992 when they sold it to the National Forest Service. That explains some of the 20th century updates like the linoleum floors in the kitchen. Overall, though, there doesn't seem to be many updates to this house, and it's probably a lot closer to early 20th century than to later 20th century. There also doesn't seem to be any insulation that I can see, so I bet during the winter it was probably pretty rough in this house. From what I read online, the Lewis family, when they owned it, the house was a lot smaller. The Thornburgs did make some pretty major updates, including the staircase itself. It's pretty hard to tell which part of this house was before 1900 and which part was afterwards, actually looking at it. I didn't see a bathroom, but from what I read online, it looks like there was one most likely next to the kitchen. There definitely is not a bathroom upstairs, though. There is an outhouse outside, so there's a good chance that the Thornburgs added the bathroom in the 40s, and before that, the Lewis family more than likely did use an outhouse. Wood stoves were also added in the 1940s, which explains the circular vents you see in pretty much every room. The barn appears to be the oldest structure still standing on the property. Both families did have quite a bit of livestock, hogs, chickens. The Thornburgs actually did have a pretty sizable beef operation, so they did actually extend the warehouse at one point when they bought it. You have to consider that all these outbuildings that the families had, like the chicken coop, the smokehouse, the carriage house, all these things were necessary at the time. They had to be pretty much self-sufficient. As I read online, the roads around Randolph County at this time were pretty bad. They were dirt roads, especially when the Lewis family owned the property. So depending on whether or not it had rained, you might not even be able to use them. You can access the Thornburg Trail from directly behind the outbuildings on the property. The Thornburg Trail is actually really nice. I didn't go the entire distance, probably somewhere between a half mile to a mile. The trail follows along McGee Creek for a while before then turning and going up some bluffs. It's actually a really beautiful hike out here on this trail. It's 160 acres in total in terms of the property. Since we have a little bit of time, let me go ahead and just read off some of the things that were grown here on the property. Winter wheat, Indian corn, oats, Irish potatoes, rye, field peas. The family actually had a vegetable garden for themselves. Hay, of course, 1 ton produced for Samuel Lewis in 1870, according to some records. Soybeans, which are currently still planted in some of the fields. Dove wheat, also currently planted in some of the fields. This is actually my first stop and will be my first episode in the Uwharrie National Forest. There are some other spots I do plan on going to, like Little Long Mountain, Jumping Off Rock, and it also looks like there's a pretty good trailhead by Highway 109 as well. So maybe those 3 additional episodes in addition to this one. The Lewis-Thornburg Farm has been added to the National Register of Historic Places. The certification says it was a successful agricultural enterprise over 5 generations of the Lewis and Thornburg families. It represents the agrarian economy in Randolph County from the 19th through the mid-20th centuries. The property is an example of the evolution of a vernacular farmhouse and outbuildings based on the needs and economic success of the inhabitants. The farm illustrates the evolution from a subsistence farm to a profitable farming enterprise. Besides the formalities, the Lewis-Thornburg Farm was a farm which families built pretty much with their bare hands. When you take a look at that house and how it was constructed and the outbuildings, you realize just how self-sufficient people were back then. This is a great hike though, and the opportunity to go through the Lewis-Thornburg House was pretty cool. It's not every day that you get to see a farmhouse, especially one which is in pretty original condition to the turn of the century. In many ways, it reminds me of the old farmhouse my grandparents used to have. The Lewis-Thornburg House is a great example of the agricultural past, especially of the North Carolina Piedmont area. There was a lot of hard work living on a farm, but a lot of fun times too, and a lot of great memories. Thanks as always for coming along on this trip. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get more updates from my channel.